Hello guys, welcome back. Sorry if I look a bit rough. I made the mistake of stepping outside after my grass was cut. Anyhow, Loki asked me if I would talk about commitment, and I am including myself here. I'm not perfect, so I don't speak for the gods, and I'm not up here trying to act perfect when I do not have a perfect history with the gods. I had somebody comment on a video that I made a couple years ago, and Odin and I were having one of our disagreements. Gods only know what it was about, because I looked at him and I said, "Do you know what we were arguing about?" He said, "I have no idea, my dear." And we really didn't know. We really didn't know. We had no earthly idea. It was awfully important at the time. It was important enough for me to make a video about when God's spousing crashes and burns, and it was one of our arguments, and I got head up enough about it that I think I like went on to make a series about being your rock aunt and divorce lawyer. Yeah, because we really had a knockdown, drag out fight, and I have no idea what it was about. I honestly can't think of anything now that we'd be that passionate about, but it was really, it was something we were both really about. Um, when you make a commitment, you commit to getting past that. You commit to getting past that. We both needed a while to cool off. We not a couple years. We've been together since then. We needed a while to cool off. I don't even know what it was, but we both needed to cool off, and we both had to honor a commitment. We made a commitment to be together for better or for worse, yeah? And I think some people go into commitments with the gods, whether it be you see it as a marriage, or you see it as parent-child, or you see it as co-workers, or you see it as God worshiper, whatever you see with this kind of we have the stars in our eyes and we only anticipate good great things, and sometimes you come down with a bump because the good great things just never seem to be coming, and it's been a while, yeah, and they're not coming, and you're waiting at the train station and the train's never coming, and the old station master doesn't have the heart to tell you the train hasn't come through in years, and he's just watching you sit there. And you eventually realize that the train isn't coming. And sometimes people are disillusioned, but you made that commitment, and then you have to go to your God and say, "Hey," and I include myself in this. I committed to you thinking I was going to get X, Y, and Z, and it's not here. And you have to talk about, because an agreement is, I just watched a video to refresh myself. An agreement would be like an agreement between two parties. Unforeseen circumstances come up, something isn't being met, it's like a contract. You're not fulfilling the contract, fine. It's, you have to meet together and either renegotiate or agree that you're going to part ways. Commitment, though, is you made a commitment. You walk away from your commitments and then you're miserable, a lot of your life. I watched one of those kind of nicer versions of, "Hey, knock it off." And they talked about, your life is what you're committed to, and that was kind of some hard truth, but it was like, yeah, Loki asked me to do this, and Odin asked me to do it too. And part of committing to Odin was committing to all of him. So I'm gonna pick on myself here. Um, Committing to all of him. Committing to the poet, yes, but committing to the warlord, committing to the god of the hanged god, committing to the god that goes, absolutely mad with ecstasy. Not that kind of ecstasy. Loki, don't help. One second, please, guys. Allergies. I'm terribly sorry. Sorry about that. I should not step outside ever. I'm allergic to everything. Anyhow, it was committing to every part of Odin. And the funny thing was, Asmodeus and I parted ways, actually, on good terms. Um, Asmodeus and I had made a commitment, and we both were having very gross over expectations of what that commitment would bring. And I sat down with him this morning and we had a talk, because actually Odin helped. And Odin said, "You and Loki are both impulsive and you tend to open your mouth and stuff comes out. And I know you can't help it, but you may have promised something here, my dear, and not realized you did." And so I went to him, and Loki actually ended up showing up, and I said to Asmodeus, I said, "Look, I've had a couple strokes." I said, "But if we ever promised you permanent leadership of this house, I'm terribly sorry, but that's not going to be how it's going to work out." I said, Loki's my ultimate god. Odin too. I said, I'm always going to default back to a Odin or Loki led household from time to time. Right now, Loki's in charge. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm truly sorry if you got hurt, thinking that you would be in charge forever. But I said, I truly apologize for that if we made you believe that you would be in charge forever, but that's just not going to be the case. And it was kind of like I felt him go, like finally somebody had come and apologized to him, and that's what he wanted. He was looking for an apology. And I said, I'm sorry if we hurt you. I said, it's just how we are. I said, we're both kind of volatile. And I said, we actually need Odin and Thor here to kind of be our, our rudders and like keep us on an even keel. I said, because they remind us of our commitments, because Odin is the god of oaths, along with a couple others. And, if you swear an oath in front of Odin, it's a big thing. So even if it's commitment and you're not swearing it on oath ring and you're not doing it in a Nordic sense, it's still important to him to honor your commitments. But Asmodeus and I both agreed he wasn't getting what he wanted, and I broke his heart. He watched me shoot a moose. That was the end. That was the end. I broke his heart. He realized that he had this idea of me that he loved, and the idea just wasn't true anymore because I really changed in the couple of years I've known him. And I said that's okay. I said I honor that. I honor that you fell in love with this idea, and I said I hope you can find her, like his dainty little princess that he's looking for. I said, I hope you can find her. I said, I really do. I love you. I hope you can find her. I said, hey, it's been a hard, rough journey. I don't want to say I was ever anti-hunter because when I was a little girl, I wanted to go hunting and everything else. I think I went way too much to the conservation, never hunt, ever side. I could allow hunting for food and like for if you were freezing to death, but the character growth I did with Asmodeus, I love him for. I came around to hunting, and from watching these hunting videos, I came around to some hard truths about the wolves. And, I still love wolves. I'm crazy for them. Still crazy for wolf conservation. I'm still crazy to introducing them where they belong, but, you also have to look at the hard truths of, um, they can breed really well. And when they breed too much, when there are too many wolves, then you have infighting in the packs, and then you have them doing stuff like usually a healthy wolf in the wild should, you know, we are told by conservationists, flee from humans, but now you have wolves, there's no reason for these hunters to lie. You have these wolves coming into conflict with these hunters, not attacking the hunters, but there was a guy that had a bear treat, and that's his meat for the winter, and the wolves came out of the woods and, they saw the dogs as other wolves, y'all. They killed three of them. They killed three of this guy's dogs and just killed them dead. They apparently didn't go after the hunter or anything, but they saw a rival pack and that's all they saw. Then, they're not like us. They don't think like us, oh, that's a dog with a human. So, I had to face some hard truths about my little fluffy loves, and I was like, yeah, they do have to control them. It's a sad part of us being the dominant species on the planet. We are the apex predator on this planet. And because we've tinkered enough with nature, now it behooves us. We have to take care of it. And I wouldn't have reached that without Asmodeus, and I thanked him, and he nodded, but he really didn't want to see me live that truth through. Just seeing me look through the scope, even in a video game, at a moose looking right at me and pull the trigger, that did something to him. I felt his heart break. And I said, I'm sorry. I said, yeah, I felt bad for a second. I was looking at that moose through the scope, and I said, I felt bad. But I thought, this is what you came out here for. And the game reinforces, even though it's from 20 years ago, it reinforces, it's part of conserving the species. You might not like it, you might want to turn away from it, but if there's too many, they fight and they get wounded or they starve to death. And that moose meat is good meat. That's good food to eat. So is actually you can eat cougars and wolves too. By the way, you can kill it, you can eat it. It's not like they're poisonous. You just gotta cook them for the same reason you gotta cook beef, pork, or chicken. But, that was an invaluable lesson to get, and I'm very happy to have worked with Asmodeus for all the tears and frustrations we put each other through. He and I parted ways, but, that gets me back to my commitment to Odin and to Loki. In Odin and Loki and I will sometimes all three walk in three separate directions and we're just done with each other. But, we always come back together because we'll honor that commitment. And that's not always easy. That's not always easy. And Odin has shaken his head and said, really, I make full rash promises all the time, but he knows I'm like Loki. We mean it with all of our heart the moment it comes out of our mouth, but it's impulsive. It's like we're possessed. We make this grand promise and we really mean it with all of our heart and soul. And then, like a microsecond after we said it, we're like, oh, snap, I shouldn't have said that. Why did something goes wrong? And then we try our best to live up to it. We often will. And Odin shakes his head and he says, "You can never break yourself of that because it is like you're possessed. You just open your mouth and something comes out. And I can see the surprise on your face that you just made this huge commitment. You're always making all these promises." And to hit me over the head with it, that game set up for the Olympics on Google, and that's free, by the way. Just go click the Google header and you'll play it. Your character, the Calico Cat you play, she's always making a promise to somebody to help, and it's like, girl, you're handing away those promises pretty freely. We need to talk about how many commitments you're making, because you're taking a side quest every 20 seconds. Girl, this is a lot of promises. Do you even remember? At one point, I just didn't remember all the promises I had made and hoped I would fulfill them. Go to the trophy room if you're having trouble forgetting what you promised. It'll give you clues to like all the promises. There are a ton of them she makes, like 20 or something. It's like, yeah, a lot. I'm like, girl, we need to talk about how much you promised to how many people. And made a commitment to Odin and Loki, and Odin's back, and Loki's here, and they're stepping up front again, and they're like, we have to renew our commitment. You have to do that at times. If you committed to a god at one time and you fell short and maybe you fell by the wayside, we can all do it. Get yourself back up, dust yourself back off, and if they're willing, because they might not be, go to them and say, okay, I want another shot at this. And sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no. I was talking to Odin last night. I say, I am not the person you made a commitment with. I said, I hunt now, even if it's just in video games. I said, I hunt now. I watch hunting videos. I've been, cruising the internet looking for affordable game meat. I said, I am not the person that, I'm open about it, that he married. And he says, I know. And I said, I drive big trucks. I go hunting. I'm driving those cars now. I said, I'm completely different. And he said, that's okay. That's okay. And he was fine with that. I've never been much of a princess. He's always been like, you're such a little show maiden. You're gonna hit everybody and kill all the people. Oh. It depends on what part of Odin you click with. I clicked with probably God of War, I think, and Bolverker. So, God of War and Bolverker, they're tough. They will kick you 7 ways from Sunday, and they won't be merciful. They don't care if you're a female, but they are also really good to work with. One second, guys. Allergies. I do apologize. I'm terribly sorry. Okay, sorry about that. But for watching me struggle with Asmodeus, Odin said, he admired that. He didn't know I had that in me. He said, you tried for years. He says, you did everything you could. You were bending over backwards and doing backflips and it still wasn't enough. And he says, he admired that. He said, you wouldn't have done that one time to keep a commitment. I said, I know. As I've told some of you before, hopefully I've grown as a human being as I've run this channel. And, I don't know if I said it this attempt, but the difference between an agreement and a commitment is you keep the commitment. You keep the commitment. I disagree with a little bit that was in the video because they'll say, well, you have the life you're committed to. Sometimes you do, but that's assuming we all have an equal playing field and we all have equal opportunities, and we know we don't. So, end mini rant, sometimes you're committed to just doing the best you can with the cards life dealt you, and it's not from lack of commitment that you're not out there driving a Bentley. It's just, you got to deal with the cards you're dealt. And some people like to go, la la la, not hearing it. And I got very good back there. And, the cards I'm dealt with, Odin and Loki is, Odin's a god. He's not all knowing. Even if he was, he wouldn't use it all the time. And, he's very much, he is who he is. I had to deal with all the skeletons in my closet with him. I had to deal with if I felt insecure, if I didn't feel good enough, because I told the person they were talking about, they talked about Odin and then they talked about a goddess. I said, if they've chosen you, you're good enough. I know, that's a base thing. You gotta get rid of those feelings of unworthiness. I had to work on that. And I said, you've got to, I don't know who told you. I said, but you got to assume there's more than you. I don't care how obscure the god or goddess you picked is. You got to assume there's more than you. Even if it's a god or goddess or it's a fairy that lives in the tree outside, you've got to assume there's more than you. You just gotta. It's not, they're not promiscuous. They love with their whole heart and soul, no matter what pantheon they're from, but just you is not going to fulfill all their needs. There's no possible way you could do it. It's not that you're not good enough. You're totally good enough, and they're 1,000 billion trillion part committed to you. But they feel that way about everyone they're with, which is why I sometimes have to remind myself not to curse people who come that start static. They're committed to you. Now, there are, you're going to run across people with the same commitment you think should be committed because, I try not to judge. I try to assume they're telling the truth, but you will run across people you're like, You married this person? You must see a part I don't see because I won't marry that person." But your commitment, you got to assume there's other people. And for the Norse, I try to give the person advice. I said we assume they're not going to like us, because that's just how it is. And for the Norse gods, there are countless books written on Odin and Loki written by spouses. So there you go. There's all the information in the road you need. It exists for the Greeks as well. There's countless things out there for them, but the Greeks, the practicing people that practice with the Greek pantheon frown upon it. And now, if you would be practicing heathenry, it depends. It really depends, but it's becoming verboten. Yes, because of Disney. Yes, because of Loki. Unfortunately, 5 billion people jumped on the Marry a God bandwagon, and now it's seen as often silly and stupid and just fan service for Tom Hiddleston. And they're probably right in some cases, but now it's like one of those things where if you opened your big mouth a couple years ago, now thanks to Disney, people think you're a walking joke or something. But that's part of it too. That's part of the commitment to Loki. Of he asked me to be open, and Odin asked me to be open, and yeah. Even though Marvel movies are out there now, and you've got oodles of people pledging themselves to Loki because they think Tom Hiddleston is hot, and I really think he's too old to be playing that role. I got damn straight. Loki is eternally youthful and beautiful. Damn it, read the lore. I got yes. He Loki takes great care with his appearance. He would be ashamed of the way Tom Hiddleston looks in those ads. I could feel him crawling into his own skin with shame because he's like, why doesn't he wash his hair? I said, I don't know. I said, they started it off to look long in the movies, and now he looks like a grease ball. I said, he's disgusting looking, and he's too damn old to be playing this role. And he goes, I know. I said, he's Loki. Have him transform. They should have had somebody in their 20s playing that role. I'm sorry, but he's eternally youthful. And I got damn straight. With me, it's funny. I'd play some more the 40s, but probably being nice to the old ladies so she doesn't feel bad. I go, aw. And the thing is, all that aside, appearance aside, part of the commitment to Loki is I'm going to have 5 billion newly minted spouses come running at me going, yeah, he loves me more, and he told me he loves me more, and he told me he's Marvel Tom Hiddleston, and Tom Hiddleston is Loki, and da da da. Sweet baby Jesus. That's part of the commitment. Part of the commitment is enduring that. Part of the commitment. I forget who said it. It wasn't anybody problematic in the heathen community, but someone said, strap your shield on one arm, pick up your sword in the other, and fight. Especially, it's like, it's gonna be like that sometimes. It'd be like that sometimes, especially if it's Odin or Loki. There's something in them that brings out something absolutely unsavory in people, and people get downright combative, and they want to be the last spell standing, and you have to be willing to fight. I don't think it's anything the gods arrange, by the way. I just think it's you have to fight your own demons first. Sorry for the phrasing, but you have to fight your own demons first. You have to fight your insecurity. You have to realize that if you were chosen, you're worthy. And you have to also fight the urge then to go strutting back and forth and going, I'm worthy. Look at me. Look at all the stuff I got. Don't nobody like that. So, commitment's not easy. If it was, everybody would do it. An agreement is an agreement that, agreements can change. It's a thing where you both agree you're going to try something out and it can change and both parties understand that. You can either change the agreement or you can walk away. A commitment is what you commit to. In the video I watched, he used this guy goes out and gets a bonsai and commits to having it, and they made it a bit extreme to make a point, but not only does he not water the bonsai, he goes from living in this really nice apartment and having his life together, but for some reason, like, he stops washing his dishes or cleaning the apartment or anything else, and he gains all this weight, and I'm like, geez, that bonsai was a really bad commitment on your part. Your life just went to hell. What did you do? And, they were doing an exaggeration, but the thing was, you should keep your commitments. If you committed to something and you're not going to follow it through, the easiest thing for him to do would have been to take that bonsai, put it in the common area of the apartment. You know, apartment complex, usually they have, have common area and said free to a good home, and someone else could have had it. He was the one that insisted on going out and getting it. It didn't run into his home. It didn't magically appear on his windowsill. He paid money for it. So that was his commitment. And sometimes if you realize you can't follow a commitment, you should own up to it. I don't believe in just making people fulfill something. I think you should keep your word. I think it's very important. But if you don't intend to, human up and wolf up, fox up, whatever you see it as, go to the party that you made the commitment to and go, look, I'm not keeping this, and here's why. And they might not like that, but they're going to admire you for coming across and saying you're not keeping your commitment. Don't do it childishly. Say, we made a commitment, but this is why I can't keep it. And, they might agree. They might change the negotiation terms. They might say, hey, we committed here. I am in for the commitment, or whatever. I guess I'm making it sound like an agreement that way, but like, I committed to Odin, and I can go to him and say I'm done with this commitment. He can laugh in my face, or he can go fine and walk away. But that would get around with the other gods, and we do at times spend time apart, but because the commitment is there, because I committed to him. He doesn't care if I didn't swear it on an oath ring or make a blood pact or anything else. You don't have to go extreme with the gods. He's like, I'm holding you to your commitment. I'm holding you to your word, because your word should be your bond. It doesn't matter if you're a heathen or whatever else. Your word should be your bond, or your word's not worth anything. And, same thing with Loki. The same thing with Asmodeus. I gave him my word I would work with him, and even though we've parted on good terms, if he would want to return in the future, he could just remind me, you gave your word. Just as Loki reminded Odin in Loki's fighting, you gave your word. And Odin was probably like, I shouldn't have done that. But, it giggles back here. You have to give your word, and you have to keep your word. That's part of commitment, and it's not always easy. You don't always get all the beautiful stuff you wanted. Sometimes you get a lot of challenges you didn't expect, but that's part of keeping commitment. It's not always easy. That guy that got the bonsai, all of a sudden it was an uphill, momentous struggle to water a bonsai every other day. Probably would kill it doing that, but that was the example in the video. And all of a sudden, just having to take care of it was this monumental struggle. I don't know what he thought it would do, like if it would be self-watering, because you set up a self-watering system depending on the plant in like 5 minutes, because you set it up for vacation. But anyhow, the point is, the guy made a commitment, wouldn't keep it. All of a sudden, he magically started watering the bonsai, and his life came magically back together. So happy ending for him. It was a bit extreme, I think. But, it's the same thing. You stop honoring your commitment to the gods, then you start falling apart on other things. It's not always easy, guys. It's not always easy. Because they're going to challenge you to grow. You're not going to want to. They're going to challenge you to change. They're going to challenge you to get goals and hit them. They're going to challenge you to, especially if it's Loki or Odin, to take all of your beliefs and tear them all apart and see if they're so. And, again, with Asmodeus, I'm grateful to him. He is the one that pushed me further on stuff I needed pushed on that no one else could do, but I think that was it for him. I think seeing me shoot the moose, that was it. His heart broke. I felt the moment it broke. And I could kind of feel Loki and Odin watching, and Loki, I felt pride, like, you pushed away those tender, warm feelings. Good for you. Welcome to hunting. And with Odin too, I felt like, And Odin was happy I got the bears. He knew I felt bad because it was literally shooting bears off your front porch, but they were scary when they ran at me. And I did not maybe shoot like an experienced hunter. I think I was screaming inside, but I managed to get him his bear. And so I went back in again, got another one. But it was part of my commitment. He keeps asking me if I would get him bear or wolf hide. And when I finally did find something really truly tiny and small, I don't know if it's because it wasn't a hide or what it was. He wasn't interested, so I started watching the hunting stuff and bagged him some virtual wolves, bagged him some virtual bears, all the game he could want, and he seems content. And I said, look, I've told him for years, I said, if you can get it to me with the paperwork, because I just can't afford it, I said, I will get you a wolf, I will get you a bear, you can have a zebra or a lion, I don't care, because, these animals have to be managed. I said, but you gotta get it to me, buddy. And I said, I can't do this on my own. I just don't have the money for it. Do I have, wolf pelt money? No, I do not. I said, you get it given to me with the paperwork. So I have the paperwork because that's important. So they know it wasn't poached. If you want to know why, they know it wasn't poached. They know it wasn't taken illegally. They know it wasn't taken off, reservation or something. No, a reserve. I'm sorry, reservation is something completely different. They know it wasn't taken off like a preserve or a place where hunting is restricted. That's what it is. And again, like maybe it came from a fur farm. I don't know if you need paper. This state's so crazy. I don't know if you need paperwork for a fur farm, but same thing. They used to have fur in vintage shops around here. Now they don't anymore. But, that would be, I think, like your one thing around it, because once it's been made into a product, you have no way of, proving where it came from. And honestly, unless you're an avid hunter or furrier, you really have no way of proving what animal it even is. So, I hope you guys liked that one, but Loki wanted me to try. I was trying before, and Loki tested my commitment. Power went out, so that's always fun. But it's sometimes you do have to sit down and talk about your commitment with the gods. What concerned me was the person had stepped out of a commitment with Odin. They dipped out on Odin, and it was like, okay. And now it's happening with a goddess, and I'm like, I'm seeing a pattern here, and we've all done it. I'm speaking from experience, so I'm not calling the person out. We've all done it. We've all gone through a string of not keeping commitments to people, to ideals, to whatever goals we set for ourselves, to God. Sometimes we figure it's easier not to keep our commitment and to ignore it. And at some point you have to just kind of, stand up and go, okay, I don't like this, but I made this commitment. I either have to go talk to the deity in question, or I have to sit myself down and go, look, you made this commitment. They're expecting you to follow through. If, they're kind of like your coach sometimes. The coach is expecting you to show up in your own life and, follow through and come to practice every day. You got to do that. You got to do that. And a good coach isn't just going to let you wash out because it got hard. They're going to yell at you and they're going to make you do it. They'll give you good advice, but sometimes they're your coach. You're definitely your coach sometimes, and sometimes coach is going to have you show up in your own life, show up for practice when you don't want to, and put in the commitment and keep your commitment, because that's how you succeed. You don't succeed at a sport by never going to practice. You might think, I'm so good I don't have to go to practice, and we've all seen pro athletes that they're so good they don't ever go to practice. What happens? They suck in the game, don't they? They might get lucky a couple times, but they really should have practiced with those teammates, because the teammates all of a sudden aren't protecting the quarterback or whatever the thing is. They're like, let him get drilled a couple times. He'll get the message. bitch, and then all of a sudden they're team players. So yeah, you got to keep your commitments. You commit to being a team player, you got to show up for the team. You know, you're not, I don't care how talented you are, you still got to show up, do that team building, do that teamwork, do that, you know, working on your commitments. If you've committed to working with Loki or Odin, any god or goddess, same thing. You got to show up in your own life. You got to show up through the team. And you got to say, okay, this is tough. This kind of sucks. Don't want to be a practice, but you got to do this. Okay. So, you know, and that's for all of us, me included. So if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.